Yeah. Uh, Hello. Thanks for joining in. Today, the first session is about what is .NET Core and how it affects the ecosystem. I'm Himanshu Pandey. I'm working as an application developer in ThoughtWorks.
Myself
Uh,
Gaurav, and like I'm also an application developer in the Thoughtworks. So we are here to present you the .NET Core and how it affects the ecosystem.
okay. Uh, let's start. So, the agenda of this discussion is we have divided the talk into three parts. The first is about what is .NET Core and why was the need of it. Second is what are its features. We'll talk about some of the key features .NET Core supports, and lastly we'll talk about how it's in the ecosystem and what's next. So let's start about the introduction of .NET Core. Before we deep dive into the .NET Core and its feature, let's take a step back and analyze about the history of the .NET Core. So in 2000 and 2002, Microsoft released the first version of .NET Framework. The idea behind it was rapid application development, and it's been 20 years, and people have been using some version of .NET Framework. So this shows the efficiency and the performance of .NET Framework, right? But there was a problem, and the problem was that it only focused on Windows Server and ignored the other operating systems and architecture like Linux and Apple. So slowly, there were projects like Mono, which started to try to convert the .NET Framework and make it portable across platforms. So projects like Mono are called black box reimplementation. So what do I mean by black box implementation is when you don't see the code, so you try to just write the code again by reading the documentation. And in documentation term, Microsoft has always been providing very descriptive sort of documentation. So Mono was just using that documentation and writing the code again. And there was another project which was started called Xamarin that is about writing cross-platform application that also uses Mono as a backend. Then came Satya Nadella, and there was a push basically about making cloud-native applications, about making the application smaller, faster, and cheaper. And the major push was around making the .NET Framework itself open source. So let's see what .NET Core is. So I've given a gist about it, what was the requirement of it. So .NET Core is an open source general purpose development platform. Also, it's the foundation of all the future .NET platforms. It is cross-platform, so it allows to develop and deploy applications across operating systems and computer architectures. This was essential because of multiple factors. First of all, there has been an explosion of different cloud providers, and hosting applications on cloud is becoming more cheaper every day. Secondly, the containers and microservices are becoming very popular in application development, and these architectures are really getting a lot of attraction. So any good framework has to support all of them. So this was another push behind making .NET Core. We'll talk about why .NET Core is more cloud native in the coming slides. The modular development stack. So if you look at the architecture and the design of the whole framework, you will find it very letting you, so it allows you to pick only what you need. So this ultimately results in a lower footprint and a much lighter SDK as compared to what we had in .NET Framework. The runtime library and the compiler components are all separate modules, and they communicate through interfaces. So this allows a clean abstraction, and this allows to swap the components very easily. Okay. So there's another term, .NET Standard, and it's a little confusing. So let's just briefly talk about it. So what is .NET Standard? So if you see that there are three different frameworks or platforms at the moment, that is .NET Framework, and .NET Core, and Mono. And .NET Framework has, apart from multiple things, it has this set of class libraries also, right? And similar to this, .NET Core also has a lot of class libraries which it offers, and those libraries are just a subset of what .NET Framework offers. And in the same term, Mono also offer a lot of class libraries, and those are also subset of what .NET Framework offers. But they also have some libraries which are only specific to these platforms. Like .NET Core has some libraries specific to them, and obviously Mono will have some libraries because it's a mobile application development framework. So the point is that there are libraries, but these libraries are not standard across these. All the libraries are not standard across all these platforms. So what would happen if you want to share certain set of libraries, right? Take this example that if you are providing a solution for any problem, you generally give multiple solutions or multiple platform specific solutions. You don't always give only one solution, right? So what if you want to share certain part of code, maybe your database access layer or some business logic, anything which you want to share across these platforms. So what you need is a set of libraries which you can share, but because there's no standard between them, so that can cause an issue, right? You might not know which library is implemented by which framework. So .NET Standard is just a solution for this. It's a formal specification of .NET API. It's not something which you install. It is something which you have to implement, right? And all the platform and the framework will implement certain version of a .NET Standard, right? So the purpose of .NET Standard is just to share code, and all the versions of .NET Standard are backward compatible. So when I say backward compatible, what I mean is the higher version supports all the libraries of the lower version, plus obviously it has some more APIs. Another point is that the lower version you have of the lower version of .NET Standard, I mean, the more platforms are using those, because it was an old standard, old version. So more platforms will be using that. So whenever you are making a library, you have to target the lowest version. Gaurav, do you have anything to add?
So basically, yeah, it's all done that we have said so far. Basically, the .NET Standard, I will read just some more points on top of it. Like .NET Standard is a base framework for all the implementation of the .NET. So we have a .NET Framework, .NET Core, and Mono and Xamarin that is open source now. So earlier, what used to happen is we have a separate libraries for .NET Framework, .NET Core, and Xamarin. So going forward, they want to converge to a single framework. So so .NET Standard would be a base for that. Like they laid a foundation using this. So going forward,
Okay.
they're going to converge it. Yeah, that's it.
Okay. That's good. So continuing. So we talked briefly about what .NET Core is and what .NET Standard is. And so let's see a few of the features. So these are the few of the features which we'll be discussing today. First is cross-platform. We'll talk about it in detail, but it basically means that we are no longer limited to only using Windows as an operating system or any specific architecture. Second is open source. So .NET Standard or .NET Core is now open source. We'll talk about it also. .NET Core is performant. We'll talk about the reasons why it is performant and what are its benefits. .NET Core offers a flexible deployment pattern. We'll talk about that in detail. It is cloud native because it is modular in nature. We briefly talked about the footprint of .NET Core API being very small. So the size of the solution is also a little small. The footprint is small and it's very performant. So these all things shape towards the applications being more cloud native. .NET Core offers a rich set of command line tools and libraries. This is something which is added new in the core. We have a small demo to showcase, so that would be fun to watch. It's consistent across environments. There's something which links to your being cross-platform, and it has a built-in IOC. Earlier we used Unity, but now it has a built-in IOC container. We'll talk about it towards the end.
Yeah.
So looking at the first feature, that is cross-platform. So as the name suggests, by cross-platform I mean that the core apps runs on Windows, Mac OS, and Linux. So if you think about it, because there's no dependency on any operating system which you can use for deployment, the deployment is generally a lot cheaper now, and containers can also be used to deploy them. It is platform independent. So there was, like I talked about, there was a problem, and to overcome the problem faced by developers to deploy to a Linux machine or a Mac machine, .NET Core has to be made platform independent, right? There was no other alternative. The question is that if you write something on one architecture or one platform, will it run on other platforms? And I briefly talked about .NET Standard. So if you make a library which follows a standard, then it would be basically cross-platform. The framework used to run the application is packaged with a deployable file. This is a great addition, and so why I say that? Because it essentially removes the dependency of the framework installed in the system and the framework of the application, right? So the runtime required and the libraries are part of the deployable package. This not only allows multiple versions of the .NET to be used by multiple apps running on one machine, but I think update is even more easier, and it's even more important. Because unlike in .NET Framework, which is served by Windows Update, .NET Core relies on its package manager to receive updates. So that's a great addition, I'll say. And the last point is that ASP.NET Core uses Kestrel Server. Because we wanted a cross-platform solution, so we needed a server which can be hosted across platforms, right? So IIS is not cross-platform, so that's why Kestrel Server is being used as the default web server for the ASP.NET Core application. On top of that, it is open source and it's very lightweight, and it is relatively fast as compared to IIS. It is used as an in-process server to handle the web requests, and the good thing about Kestrel is that it is based on async IO library called libuv. I'm sure that quite a lot of you have heard about it. So libuv is a library which was developed for Node.js. So Kestrel is also built on top of that. Kestrel can be used like an edge server, directly internet facing, or it can be used in front of any reverse proxy server like Nginx or IIS. Okay, moving on. Let's talk about open source. So if you think about it, .NET or Microsoft itself is not closely related with open source, right? Throughout the history of Microsoft, there has always been push toward using closed source software, or using one particular operating system for the development and deployment, right? So it's a push toward open source, and lucky for devs, it's a great push. And as we'll talk about in the future slides, we'll see that there's a trend now that more people are attracted towards using .NET Core as when they were using .NET Framework. And so let's look at the first reason. And the first reason which Microsoft claims is to lay the foundation of a cross-platform .NET. So before releasing .NET Core, we were able to run the .NET code across platforms, right? We talked about Mono and Xamarin being in picture, but there was a problem. So if you think about it, because I briefly talked about that Mono is basically black box implementation of .NET Framework, right? So what it meant is, at the end of the day, it is just basically copy pasting the code from the .NET Framework. So think about it. Whenever a new version of .NET Framework was released, some folks at Mono have to copy the code or port the code into C++ so that it can run over Linux or Mac OS, right? And the other problem was because the code itself was not open source. So if there was any issue inside the code, so it was very hard to track. And for people using Mono, it was even hard to fix, right? So the best way to fix the code duplication and all these issues was to build a single cross-platform stack in a collaborative manner, right? And the best way to achieve this is by open sourcing everything. The second point is to build and leverage a stronger ecosystem. So what I mean by that is, if any framework is to be very popular, then obviously the ecosystem has to be very rich, right? So these are the few stats which shows how popular .NET framework is getting. So there has been more than 60,000 active contributors who have been contributing onto multiple repos provided by of .NET, and there have been more than 3,700 companies who have been openly contributing towards it, and these companies are non-Microsoft companies, right? And few of the biggest companies who have been contributing are Google, Samsung, Red Hat. So these all depicts like how popular the .NET framework is getting in the open source community. And if you think about it, making anything open source is gets feedback pretty quickly, because now you as a client or as an end user, you're not waiting for the final release to come, right? And everything is open source. It's not just the code. The documentation is open source. All the issues are also there. So things like that are more transparent now. So this is just a trend toward how many PRs have been accepted by the community. So it's going up and up since 2013, since it was released. Okay, let's look at performance and scalability. Performance is the key focus behind .NET Core in my perspective. With the recent introduction of ASP.NET Core as well as Kestrel Web Server, it is considered one of the most swiftest web application frameworks, and it's faster than various other popular web frameworks available. So this snippet, this screenshot which I have attached is I've copy pasted it from Tech Empower, and Tech Empower is a web application framework performance comparison tool, and it is like an industry standard these days. It's basically an open source tool, and majority of the results are governed by the community. And the performance test, it varies. Like it's a very diverse set of tests, and they do these testing on both on-prem hosted solution as well as cloud. So it can be like I've kept only few of the frameworks, but these are basically few of the common or most popular frameworks available, and they have a very wide variety of tests which they do. So this is a composite score which they give, and this is basically a rank which we have got based on multiple tests, right? So it can be clearly seen that the rank of ASP.NET Core is 6. I'll paste the link in the chat so that you all can go through, and there are multiple reasons behind that. But the primary reason of this performance is the modularity of the .NET Core and the smaller footprint of the app. Okay, let's move on.
So just one thing.
Let's talk.
Can you discuss about this, like JSON? What is JSON? What is one query? What is 20 query? Something like that.
So these are just the tests which were performed in order to, because it's not just one thing which you cater to. If you want to rate a framework about the performance, right, you have to consider a wide variety of tests, like how fast the database access is, how fast you give the JSON response, right? So these are things around that. Like the JSON is how fast you give the JSON. These are the tests about queries, how fast you access the database. So things like that. And at the end of the day, they give a weighted score. They rank every score according to some criteria, and that's the weighted score. So in order to give you a gist of how fast the framework is.
So using this, we can conclude that going forward, ASP.NET Core will be the most performant framework across the board.
Yeah. At the moment, it's rated 6, but let's see how it goes. We have few slides as well, like in the coming slides, to focus more on that. Okay, let's look at the flexible deployment part. So I briefly mentioned about it in the previous slide. So the core runtime can be deployed either as part of your app, or it can be installed centrally on the web server. So it is a shift from the traditional .NET Framework deployment. So the side-by-side installation permits various services on the same server. Every one of them can have its own .NET Core version, which essentially means that and one app can adopt the latest version, while others can keep running on the previous version, right, on which they were tested on. So this limits the risk significantly when you want to upgrade the version. Docker containers are very popular now, and the deployment is friendly with them. Deployments can be self-contained. So self-contained deployment is when you package the required libraries and the runtime into one single packageable unit, and you deploy that. And so you don't expect any shared framework to be installed onto the server when you are finally deploying it.
So just one more thing, like as part of this Docker container friendly, can we expect like as part of like we are deploying the runtime and the core everything as part of the package. So we don't have to take a image and build on top of that. We can run on top. We can just run on top the plain container in that case, right?
Yeah. So
So
Gaurav, do you want to share, because we have a demo for this now?
yeah, I can do that. Thank you, Himanshu. Thank you for sharing. I'll continue over here from here.
Sure.
So is it visible to all?
Yeah, I can see.
Yes.
So I was just talking about, so this I'll continue from this Docker container friendly thing. So what it means is basically earlier we used to have we'll set up the environment first, then deploy the application on top of that so that our application will start running. But going forward using this ASP.NET Core, we have two options. Either we can package all the runtime libraries as part of the our code, or we can install them centrally on the web server. So it's a like used to process that we used to do in case of the ASP.NET. So yeah, that's all about this. What is the difference between this point A and point B, and that makes it Docker container friendly as well. So yeah, that's it. So going ahead, so we have as Himanshu mentioned already, that we have a .NET CLI. So in earlier version of the ASP.NET, we just have a MS deploy, and we don't have anything like CLI tool which we can use to build a project, to create a new project, to restore the newer packages, everything. Like there are certain commands which we have right now. So so that we can create anything using the command line. And this also helps in the CI pipelines. Earlier we used to write ms deploy, that were little difficult to write, but using this CLI it would be much easier to build a project, publish them, and create a build project out of that. So we'll start with the demo from here. So I'll just showcase you how you can run this .NET CLI from your local system. So I am running on the terminal. So I have .NET installed on my machine. How can we verify that? It's basically .NET. You'll type it. It will show you like is it installed on your machine or not, or you can check the versions of your .NET framework. I have 3.1.401 right now. So what I will do, I will just quickly create one project and show you how much easy it is to use this CLI tool. So I'll just write down new web app. Web app is basically a template. So there are other templates as well. So I'm using this web app to create a web application, and I'm naming this as ASP.NET Core application. So yeah, so you can see that the template ASP.NET Core web app. This is a specific one. So it is coming due to this web app. So you can see that I'm creating a ASP.NET Core web app. It is created successfully, and it have a basic libraries included in this. So if I'll go into the folder and do a ls, you'll see I have certain files, startup.cs, which is the structure of the ASP.NET Core file, ASP.NET Core project. So startup.cs, program.cs, app settings.json, development specific JSON. So all those things we have. I'll just write, I'll just build this project. Sorry. So this build actually will restore all the dependencies needed by this project. So build is successful. I'm using the base template, so I'm not changing any code right now. So just run it. So you can see that website is running up and running. So it is underlying, it is using the Kestrel server to host the application and to serve it on your to your uh, port. So I'll show you where it is, how it looks like. So this is our web application, the basic web application. We have not done any code shell so far. So it's just three commands. Using that, we are able to create a new project. So we have a home. This is the home page. This is the privacy page and the basic stuff. So as apart from these commands, we have other commands as well. Like I've used this, I can use this add. It adds a new project in your into your solution. We have a build that I've used already. Clean. That's to clean the to clean the solution altogether. So they help to show the command helplines. So basically, how you can use the command. So you can go and go to the Microsoft documentation. You can refer all these commands from there. So we have like, this is the NuGet command that you can use as to add a new package or to restore the existing one. So we have this .NET restore, which restore all the dependencies required by your .NET project. So basically, we use 3-4 major command line tools as part of the .NET Core project development. So are we good? Can we go ahead?
Yeah, you can.
So this is one more important feature of the ASP.NET Core. So they have provided a built-in IOC container, which is called Microsoft DI. Earlier we used to have the Unity or the Castle Windsor as the IOC container. So but now we don't need any separate DLL or any separate NuGet package uh, to have this functionality. So this is being provided by the iService provider. That is the base, the base of the container, which includes all the base libraries required by the ASP.NET to run. So the container, you can refer anytime the iService provider, it will give you the instance of the IOC IOC container. It's a basic, actually it's a it has a limited set of features right now, because they want to provide just DI using the constructor injection and the simple lifetimes. It simplifies most of the requirements that project needs, but there is also a possibility, if you want to leverage any other container, you can extend this existing container. So that's also a capability provided by this iService provider. uh, uh, so it just, as I already mentioned, it supports the constructor injection only. So we have a property injection as well provided by the other frameworks. So, but in this we have only constructor injection, and it supports only 3 lifetimes so far: the singleton, transient, and the scope. So as the name suggests, singleton is for the object will remain uh, always in the application till the application lifetime. Transient is basically whenever whenever you need it, it will get you'll get a new instance every time. And scope is basically, you can define a scope from from a request start to a request, and you can define that, and it will be available till that time. So below is this code snippet that I have added as part of the presentation. It shows you that I have an interface and its implementation. So how easy is it to inject as a dependency in our project. So we have a startup.cs, as I have already shown you in the created project. So there we have a configure service method, and it's a predefined method basically. So it's a place where you will add all your dependencies of the project. So this would be neat and clean and easy to use, easy to manage. So that's about the built-in IOC container. So yeah, now till this we talked about the features provided in the ASP.NET Core. So now we come to the architecture part of that. So it is architecturally different from the .NET right now. So they have trimmed down their thick SDK into smaller pluggable NuGet packages. So basically, once you start in earlier times when you use .NET, so we have a complete library support that is huge, and we if there are certain libraries that we don't want to use, so but it would be available in the project itself. We have You don't have any choice to you don't have any option to remove them as well. But in the .NET Core, uh, there is a limited set of DLLs which are provided by the Microsoft. So you can extend that using the NuGet packages as and when you need. So for an example, Newton Soft JSON. So that in the .NET framework, it used to come along with your SDK. But now, if it's not mandatory to use that, if you want, you can use as a NuGet package. So that makes it convenient, and that makes you to choose between the options that you have for the particular requirement. So this is the base for the lightweight SDK. So they have trimmed down all the unnecessary DLLs from the SDK part. So this is how it is architecturally different from .NET and from the .NET basically. So nowadays you will see that everything would be coming via the NuGet packages, and you'll have a list of NuGet packages installed in the .NET Core project. So it also solves one more problem actually. I'll talk about that briefly in just 1 minute. So in .NET we used to have a let's say I have installed one NuGet package on project A, and it is the project A has been referred in the project B. So there you have to install the NuGet package additionally over there. So it will not come it will not copy the DLL all the DLLs of that NuGet package. But in the .NET Core, once you refer a project once you refer a project A in the project B, so it also copies all the dependencies along with that automatically. You don't have to worry about all the dependent libraries that were there in the project A. So that was the advantage we get in the ASP.NET Core. So we'll talk.
Yeah.
We'll go bit. So now we want to talk about how it is impacting the ecosystem. So as we have already seen, so .NET 3 we have two kind of frameworks right now. It's one is .NET 4.5, 4.7.2, something like that, and we have .NET Core 2.2, 3.1, something like that. So there are two different streams running right now parallelly, and we have a base called .NET Standard that Microsoft have put to converge these two parallel lines into one. So now going forward, we will have a .NET 5, which will be the unified version of the .NET and the .NET Core. So that would be a next release, that next version of the .NET Core, and it would be it can you can use that .NET 5 for the WPF applications, ASP.NET, Azure related things, or mobile for the mobile application development, even for the IoT and the AI as well. So this is the future of the .NET, and we have a detailed slide on this .NET 5 coming through. So we'll briefly talk about that on the coming presentations. So this is the schedule for the future releases of the .NET. So right now we are at .NET Core 3.1. It's a long time support. LTS means the long term support. So we are at the .NET Core 3.1. This year we are expecting we'll have a .NET 5.0. Basically, it's bit you'll feel that here we are talking about .NET Core and suddenly we reached .NET 5. So you'll feel some sort of difference. So yeah, so we are expecting it to come at November 2020. Uh, that's all about the .NET Core. So we want to have a poll around what all frameworks do you guys use. So let's have that. So please respond to the poll. We'll have a understanding like we have a survey after this, so we'll talk about that in there over there.
Maybe Gaurav, we can continue and then let's see the results in between in the interest of time.
Will it take some time? Okay, okay, no issues. So this is the survey that this is the results of the survey that Stack Overflow took. So people, we can see that people have used .NET Core. 70% of people have worked before the .NET Core, .NET Framework, Spring, Node.js, and the others also. Yeah, that's great actually. So you'll be happy to hear that ASP.NET Core is the most loved web framework uh, in this survey 2020. So you can see that its ranking is almost at the top. And there were like in the survey, from the survey details we got to know that there were 65,000 participants available for that survey. And we have ASP.NET Core. Like people love that ASP.NET Core, the features provided by the Microsoft and all those other stuff. So if you compare it with the React, Angular, Spring, or even with the ASP.NET, so you'll find that at the top. So that's very uh, it's great to hear that actually. Next is basically last. This is about the web frameworks. Now we are talking about more in terms of the frameworks, tools, and like framework tools or libraries available to us for the day-to-day development activity. So there also .NET Core is taking a first place, and people wanted to work with the .NET Core because that's a upcoming or the future of the .NET world actually. So, Himanshu, do you want to add anything on top of that?
Uh, Nothing. I'm good. Like I'm just optimistic and happy to see the results.
Yeah, yeah, actually, yeah. So we have reached at the end of this slide. So thank you so much for your support. Actually, yeah. I'll stop share. Do you want, if you want to have any question or something like that, we can talk in the Q&A session.